Hi there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the new album from Kellie Pickler titled The Woman I Am. Now, if you've been listening to country radio over the past few months, you could be forgiven for thinking that there aren't that many solo female country stars left in the genre, at least in comparison with the overabundance of male stars. I mean, with the exception of Taylor Swift, Miranda Lambert, and maybe Carrie Underwood, who do you have? Well, you've got Cassadee Pope, maybe, but she's following in the Taylor Swift template and is more pop than country. And even outside of that, even with that, the songwriting's seldom up to par, and you don't see a huge number of female country singer-songwriters gaining any sort of chart popularity. Now, that doesn't mean that they aren't there. Acts like Kacey Musgraves, who won Best New Artist at the CMAs this year, and Brandi Clark are still writing and singing great country songs that reflect a distinctly female presence in the genre. And really, it's a damn shame they aren't getting any sort of significant airplay in the same way, particularly when they write bitingly intelligent material and have a lot of flavor and texture behind their delivery. And thus, I was particularly looking forward to the new album from Kellie Pickler, who some country music fans have wrongly branded as just another American Idol reality show faux country girl. Then again, it's not hard to see why some people came to that conclusion, given her first two albums of output were not especially strong in the slightest, and they fell into the trap that a lot of American Idol-inspired albums tend to be, in that they were mostly bland and not particularly interesting. But then Kellie Pickler came back in a big way with 100 Proof early last year, which earned a fair amount of critical acclaim for being an artistic breakthrough for her and addressing some of the darknesses in her past. And completely unsurprisingly, the hits of that album didn't chart for anything, which was a real disappointment because it was a very strong album and was enough to pique my interest for her newest record that's coming out recently, The Woman I Am. Between these two records in the course of the last year and a half, she left her former label and signed with Black River Entertainment, which is an independent country label, which for me was an even bigger sign because Kellie Pickler, with her recent performances on Dancing with the Stars, winning Dancing with the Stars, you'd think that she'd get all the more popularity. She's got that specific mainstream push. And perhaps on an independent label, maybe she would have even more control over her artistic direction, and we could actually end up getting something special. So, with all that in mind, how did the record turn out? It's pretty good. I'm not sure it's great, though, or at the same level as Kacey Musgraves or Brandi Clark, but it's a strong album all the same, and while I don't think it's quite as strong as 100 Proof, it doesn't mean that this album is not worth your time, particularly if you like strong women in country music. And when I say strong, I definitely mean it, both in subject matter and instrumentation. In comparison with Kacey Musgraves' occasionally flighty dalliances with folk and Brandi Clark's more downbeat adult contemporary vibes, Kellie Pickler is pushing towards country rock on her louder tracks, but in a way that definitely complements her delivery. The guitars are muscular and potent, there's enough texture and raw twang in the mix to add a bit of a rougher feel to the tracks, and while there is some polish on a few songs, it still feels a lot more organic than your stock mainstream country song. Sure, there are some occasional hand clap beats and the occasional moment where the production isn't quite as cohesive as it could be, but overall, I've got no complaints with this particular instrumental direction. It's easily the high point of this album. Where things get a little bit more questionable are in Kellie Pickler's vocal delivery. Now, look, don't get me wrong, she's a great singer and she has a really beautiful voice that's aptly suited for the slower ballads on this album, but to me, she's got a lot of the same traits that make her a singer who's ideal for American Idol, but not exactly great for a country singer. She's very good at those big, cleaner, more theatrical moments, a little bit better than the rougher, dirtier, slightly more intimate feeling country that she wants to perform on this album. And while she's never bad per se, at points it feels that some of the more grit and raw passion in her vocal delivery could have sold the material a little bit better, could have maintained a little bit more cohesion, stay a little bit stronger. Now this takes us to the songwriting and the lyrics, where we run into this album's biggest strengths and arguably biggest weaknesses. On a technical level, this album is really quite strong. The rhymes are solid, the melodies are good, and the songwriting in general is fairly strong, and I can't tell you how awesome it is to see country songs that reference drinking whiskey over beer. That's personal preference on my part. And on every song that Kellie Pickler has writing credits, there are personal touches that I found really quite charming, especially on Selma Dry, a song about her great-grandmother that had a lot of detail and painted a really compelling picture. You don't often see songs in this vein. But honestly, I wish there was a lot more of those little moments of texture and detail, which takes me to what I consider the biggest flaw of this album, and one that does knock it down a peg in comparison with its predecessor. There's generally a broad lack of originality and unique personal touches on this record, particularly on the songs that are not written by Kellie Pickler. It's not exactly a new problem with traditional country here. Sometimes you just run low on material if you don't really stretch yourself, and I don't get the feel that Kellie Pickler really stretched herself on this album. As much as I like songs like Bonnie and Clyde for their rough edges and raw power, I can't help but feel that the comparison is just a little overused, particularly if you're familiar with Hellraiser songs featuring female protagonists. It's one of the go-to archetypes. And then you have Ring for Sale, which falls into a similar problem. It's a song about a fiancé selling off wedding apparel in retaliation for her cheating future husband, and while it's a fun little song, it doesn't really hit me as strongly as some of the failing relationship songs on Brandy Clark's album. Maybe it's that Kellie Pickler's delivery, it's a little too broad, a little too theatrical. Maybe the songwriting just wasn't clicking. Maybe the song just wasn't raw or impacting enough. Really, I'm not entirely sure. But in a nutshell, that's pretty much my entire opinion of the album as a whole. It's quite good from a technical construction and has a lot of the texture and feeling that calls back to old school traditionalist country music. All on stuff that makes it good completely right out of the gate. But it's not quite great, and I can't help but feel it's lacking a little bit in punch, which I feel that more contributions from Kellie Pickler could have improved. To me, it feels like the album is settling her into a niche in her comfort zone, and look, well, that's not a bad thing per se, and while it's a big step up from her original Idol days and her first two albums, it doesn't quite feel as strong or emotionally evocative as 100 Proof, and that was kind of a disappointment to me. Yet even with that, this album is still very good and worthy of a 7 out of 10 and a recommendation. If you're looking for some solid country music with good instrumental flavor, check out The Woman I Am by Kellie Pickler. Really, the country music scene, especially right now in the mainstream, it needs a lot more women like her. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. If there's any other albums you'd like me to take a look at, or if there's anything I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'd be more than happy to take a listen. Until then, see you next time.